Hello and welcome to another Weegamers and the Bunker Club video. Once again, you're joined by the magnificent me, Wee Andy. I mean, your day just can't get any better. Well, it can, because I'm joined by the absolutely gorgeous Amanda Alloway. Hello, Amanda.
Hello, Andy. How are you?
All the better for you being here.
Such a charmer.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, most of the time the folks that watch Weegamers are used to seeing Justin's face, or Simon's face, or Carl from Crooked Dice. It's not always an attractive sight on a Saturday morning.
Well, I'm trying to make up for it with all the hair, to keep it sort of, like all the hairy stuff.
I can officially say you count as the most glamorous co-host that's been on a Weegamers video to date.
Oh, too kind. Too kind.
For all you lovely people who don't know, aside from Amanda being a very dear friend of mine, Amanda is the queen of cosplay as far as I'm concerned locally, captaining the ship for the Eye of HarmoNI. I'm never really quite sure how we're supposed to pronounce that. The Eye of HarmoNI. HarmoNI. The Northern Ireland contingent of what nutjobs love Doctor Who and like to dress up. And I'm going to let you pronounce your steampunk one because I never pronounce it right.
It's Athereal.
Yeah,
the ether.
Yeah, I just don't have a classical education, so Athereal.
No, but you do the steampunk stuff, Andy. So you should know about the ether and the ether ships and
ether
so
can do.
Athereal.
Steampunk it can say. Ethereal's just it's a bit too posh for me. You're obviously in the upper class of the steampunk society, whereas I'm still down in the coal yard.
Grand cabin on the airship. That's me.
Yeah, I'm down the back shoveling coal into the boiler.
Yeah.
I don't have time for all your ether and stuff like that there. It's all hard work and sweat for me as far as I'm concerned. Amanda and I, well, no, not Amanda and I. Let's put the record straight here. I would say that 90%, if not possibly higher, of my cosplay is a direct result of Amanda. Usually Amanda going, "Hey Andy, I've got a great idea." And me going,
normally, that's how the conversation starts.
And me going, "Okay, dress me like one of your French dolls."
You do realise that that's what this is. It's because I never grew out of dressing up action men and Cindy dolls when I was a child.
There's nothing wrong with it. You know what? It has been an absolute. I actually don't think, and I'm not just saying this to buddy up. This isn't your payment for being here. I genuinely don't think I would enjoy cosplay as much as I do if it wasn't for you.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, no, because, and I'm sure it's probably been the experience for a lot of people. I don't think I'm breaking any fourth walls by saying there are a lot of divas in cosplay.
No.
No, really, there are.
Yes.
There are a lot of divas, and then sandwiched somewhere in the tiers of the different strata, there's some really, really nice, lovely, genuine, down-to-earth people who are just there purely for the fun and enjoyment, both for themselves and others. And Amanda kind of rules the kingdom as far as I'm concerned in that strata of decent people. So there you go. I thought we'd come on to talk about cosplay. I'm feeling this is awfully about how wonderful I am.
I have to get my family here.
Right, that's enough of the buttering up. But that is basically, and quite honestly, to put in context to people, where I deem the opinion that comes from thine mouth, madam.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm
glad somebody listens to me.
No choice, you'd hit me if it didn't.
True.
But no, Amanda and I have chatted many a time that yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, the whole cosplay. And we thought it might be kind of fun to do, I'm going to say a series of videos, but that suggests a plan. A loose conglomeration of footage where we will throw out our humble musings. Now, I've managed a few bits on my own. That 10% that I've carved out of cosplay, I'm very proud of my 10% contribution to my own cosplay.
I think it's more than 10%.
Well, 11.5. But what we thought we would do is throw together, as and when we've got the ideas kind of stitched together, our thoughts on how to do cosplay right. And we don't mean like to dress up as some sort of DC or Marvel character and go and charge money at birthday parties. We mean to just enjoy yourself and have fun. Yeah?
Yeah. Look the part.
Exactly. So, to that end, on the Amanda Alloway show tonight, you will be viewing to the side here a montage of photographs. And this is to sort of bring home to you, because you're seeing a lot of people here. I'm in there as well. But you see a lot of people. But the one thing that all the pictures have in common here is the hands and minds and skills of Amanda have been responsible in large or small parts for all of them, except for
my hands have been some funny places, I can tell you.
I can testify to that. The very shrewd local eyes will notice on occasion a photograph of Mal from Forbidden Planet turn up. Mal's costume is completely his own, and that's just what he wears every day to work.
This is true.
But I mean,
right.
From your own point of view, Amanda, you've made an awful lot of costumes. Now you kind of know the photographs that you've sent to me for tonight's little sort of montage. Yeah. Out of what's there, what are your particularly proudest creations?
Well, I think it has to be Madam here behind me. It certainly would be top of the list. The Clockwork Droid from Doctor Who, which kind of ticks all of my boxes really when it comes to a costume. I started out in sort of the cosplay experience with steampunk. And there's not very many of us that do it on an active basis in Northern Ireland. So I've been over to the Asylum a couple of times over in England and a few other events. So to get my steampunk experience. But there's a big crossover between steampunk and Doctor Who, particularly in the sort of new Who world. And the Clockwork Droid, as soon as I saw that episode of The Girl in the Fireplace, although it wasn't particularly steampunk, being a I said Madame de Pompadour style French costume, the whole backdrop to the episode was very much steampunk, with body parts being turned into pieces of the ship and all that kind of stuff, with lots of copper wires and tubes and all sorts of things. So it just ticked all those boxes, and I just wanted to do it. And took me a while to put it all together, but when I eventually did get her together and went out and at that first day, and the reaction that I got from people, and it was just a brilliant experience, because I'm a bit of a drama queen, as you know, and have done a lot of drama and stuff in the past, and I love all the theatrical kind of bit of it. So for me, cosplay isn't well, it's a lot about the costume, but it's actually about the character and being able to put across a bit of that character to an extent that people recognise it for what it is, and almost are prepared to suspend their disbelief and engage with you in that fantasy, just even for that 5 minutes that you're in the costume. So she ticks all the boxes really for me for that. The other one would be, in terms of the reaction that I get, is probably the Death Eater from Harry Potter, which is another one that I like to wear, partly because it's a lot more comfortable than this one. It's a much easier costume to wear, but again, a brilliant reaction. And I have to say, for me, that's actually what I enjoy the most in terms of doing cosplay, is the reaction that I get from people who see you in costume, react to you almost, genuinely actually react to you sometimes, be it in admiration or abject terror sometimes. But that's what we love. And it would be a bad day out costuming for me if I was wearing this and I didn't have at least one one scream during the day. I'd be very disappointed. I'd go home disappointed if that happened. So yeah. So the costumes that tend to attract me most are the ones that kind of combine a bit of historical elements to them. Something that's maybe a bit magical, but something that's got that slightly futuristic edge to it. That's maybe not very obvious at the start, but as you develop the costume, it kind of develops with the character as well. So, and it all comes back to sort of the whole steampunk aesthetic too. So things with magic, mystery, and a bit of science fiction thrown in, and that's pretty much what I like.
It's a good mix. It's a good mix. Now I am going to magically here, because I'll just do this and it'll appear on the screen and everyone will wonder how on earth they've done it. But I mean we've talked about your clockwork droid, so we'll pull the clockwork droid up because there's a few really really good pictures of that. In terms of bringing the droid together. Now, obviously, you had the photographic reference from Doctor Who, but how did you approach that? I mean, it wasn't like you could go to a shop and go, "Oh yes, Clockwork Droid parts 1, 2, and 3. Thanks very much."
Yeah, no, it took me a while to do it. I mean, the thing about the costumes on Doctor Who, because it's a BBC production as well, if I'm allowed to say BBC.
Yeah, you can even swear it's YouTube.
Oh my goodness! Well, no, that's dangerous. Don't let me do that.
No, just
it's a BBC production, so the production values in terms of costume are very high, and I suspect quite a lot of the costumes that we see in things like Doctor Who are, very historically accurate costumes that they've used for some of their big TV dramas over the years. And to be honest, you can do that, and it is doable. And there's a lot of very skilled and technical tailors and seamstresses out there who will have made absolute exact replicas of the costume. But it's taken them a lot of time, effort, and money. It has to be said to do that. And the difficulty, I think, with a costume like that is, for the purposes that we would wear them when we do sort of events and things, they're not the easiest thing to wear. And you get very hot, and you get very sticky, and you can't wear it for very long. And, we have done, you've been to many of our events, Andy, as well. A full day out in costume is a long and hard experience.
Yeah.
So for me, what I was trying to do with the Clockwork Droid was to create a costume that met enough of the aesthetic points in terms of how it looks and it appears, but could maybe roll back on some of the sort of the difficulties of a fully historically accurate costume. So basically what I did with this one, the dress was actually from one of those cheapy cosplay places out in China. Cost me next to nothing to get it, and then I modified it. So once I got the dress, because I like the fabric, and it's actually quite a nice printed cotton fabric, which is historically accurate, believe it or not, because printed cotton was very much the thing. But it's cool, it's easy to wear, so I did lots of little details to it, added a bit of corsetry at the back, and added the frills and the lace and those sorts of things. I made my own panniers, which are the sort of padded bits that go under the skirt to give you that shape.
Are they the hips?
Give you the hips. You got to have the hips.
Panniers.
And again, that sort of is sort of going back to the steampunk thing, because it's the kind of stuff that a lot of steampunks would make. All sorts of bits of padding and stuff like that to pad out the skirts and things like that for that Victorian look. So it was using those sorts of skills again, just as I say, to get the shape of it right. The mask actually came from America. I was very lucky to find it. I actually started off doing a sort of a modification to a V for Vendetta mask, which is a popular one for the Clockwork Droid. Because if you look at it, if you can see, it's actually the chin's quite long and pointed.
Yeah.
And the V for Vendetta mask is one that's shape-wise is quite similar, needs a bit of work done to it. People have also used carnival masks, and my very first mask that I wore was just a painted carnival mask, but it just didn't look quite right. And then I found this mask from a sculptor actually in America who did sculpts of both Clockwork Droid and the Death Eater, but supplied a resin mask at a very reasonable price, it has to be said. And I bought a raw mask and painted it myself, so which saved a bit on the cost as well. And then the wig, as you know well, Andy, I am well known for my wig wrangling skills.
Yeah.
There's many a wig that I have wrangled over the years, and that was a cheapy, very shiny blonde-ish wig from Amazon, party wig from Amazon, that got the talcum powder treatment, and basically I turned it into a powdered wig. So with some coloured sprays and powders and stuff like that, just to take the shininess out of it, and lots of hairspray. And it's going on, I don't know, 4 years now that I've been using that particular set, so it's held up pretty well. So in the end, it wasn't a hugely expensive costume, but again, it was about just trying to make sure that I was hitting enough of those aesthetic elements to the costume that while it wasn't an exact replica, it's close enough to the look of the original that, I mean, to be fair, the reaction that it gets, you know, I've never had a negative reaction to it. It does look well, and it's a costume I just love to wear. And there's bits of it that have been made by some of our Weegamers friends, if you can see the spiky bit here at the front, the weapon,
Yep.
which was 3D printed by Justin for me, which I don't often wear because it is quite sharp, so I have to be careful with it. But
you'd be proud to know that. It's actually dangerous.
We don't want to stab people when we're out in costumes, so our props and weapons have to be. I need a little rubber bit in the end of it, an orange bit or something on it, just to. But so again, that's the beauty about what we do, is that there's so many of us that all work together and muck in, and we use each other's skills as well to develop our costumes and work on our costumes, and that's the other part of it that I really love. So I don't think there's any of my costumes that are just solely me any more than you say a number of costumes I've been involved for you. But that's, to me, that's how it works. It's all about that sort of team effort, really, to get it up the standard and make it look good when it goes out.
It is about finding your tribe, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And okay, I appreciate we've all been probably very lucky in terms of finding each other. I know there's folk out there maybe not so fortunate or just more remote.
Yeah.
I mean, from my point of view, at the early onset, I suppose I would say most of my cosplay was, I think the term's closet cosplay. And that's not to suggest that I was hiding in the closet and leaping out and people going, "Oh, surprise!" That's
today.
Mr. Ben. Yeah, Mr. Ben as a 40-year-old. No, but closet cosplay.
Ben had a great life. I wish I was Mr. Ben.
It was great. Yeah, and only 14 episodes. I didn't appreciate it until I bought the 50th anniversary DVD only last week. I jest you not in Tesco's. There was only ever 14 episodes.
My goodness.
I know, because it felt like it was on TV all the time.
It probably was. It was probably just repeated endlessly.
It probably was. But yeah, the whole idea of the closet cosplay is you see a character, you like the idea, you go to your closet, you open up, and you look for the things that kind of come close in colour or shape. You stick it on, and you just go for it. It is dress up. Pure, plain and simple dress up. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Dress up.
Yeah. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You don't need to be snottery about it. You don't need to be clever. You just need to have fun. And, a leather jacket and a pair of black jeans and a pair of black sunglasses and a toy gun, and you're the Terminator. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, even I think of it in our ordinary lives, the way that we present ourselves, the things that we do, the way that we dress, whether it's conscious or unconscious, it all projects a facet of our personalities, so you can tell if somebody's a bit down maybe by how they're dressed compared to what they might look like on another day, or if they're feeling upbeat and good about themselves. It's quite often comes across in how they dress and how they look. So image is very important. We're visual animals, and we react to that. So it is very much about that. But as I say, for me, it's about the character, and it's that little facet of my personality that there's something about a character that I connect with. Not that I'm suggesting that I'm a sort of murderous robot, that goes around chopping up people to build fixed parts of ships or anything. But, there's something about that character that appeals to me. I always end up being a villain for some reason. I'm not quite sure why that is, but anyway, wicked stepmother. That's my classic role,
You've all now. Let's just set the record straight. You make a fantastic River song.
Yeah, but she's a bit villainous too. She's not a goody two-shoes.
I prefer to think of her more as an anti-hero.
Yeah, well, yeah. But she does, she's got her dark side, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I do quite like that. And but as I say, it's about just something about that particular character, that there's some facet of that character that appeals to me, and I want to project that. And cosplay is a good way to maybe project those parts of you that maybe otherwise you wouldn't get an opportunity to do it, because it's a safe environment and a safe way to do it, and it's fun, and it's everybody knows it's not serious, and there's and as I say, people engage with you. It's a little contract that you have with them, that you're going to have that sort of little bit of suspension of reality for a while, while you play that character, and they engage with you, and everybody enjoys it. That's why we watch TV and film and go to theatre and all of that sort of stuff. And hopefully we'll get back to take that again someday.
Yeah.
But we enjoy that, as it's part of it's in our DNA, I think. Storytelling and fantasy and all of that is just part of who we are. And for me, I don't have a lot of time to do drama in the way that I used to, because it takes up a lot of time for rehearsal and all that kind of stuff when you do those sorts of productions. I absolutely love it, but it's just, for me, it's something that I find difficult to squeeze in. But cosplay was actually a way for me to do that, and an outlet for that sort of engagement with the public, and also the creative side of it, which I really enjoy, because going away and tinkering with my sewing machine or my soldering iron to make bits for a costume is a little bit of mental therapy, I have to say, for me, and something that takes me away from the rigours of daily life. Which is what we all need.
Yeah, it is. It's funny you said about the sort of the Amdram side of it, because obviously my first sort of encounter with yourself was through the Emerald Garrison and Martin Ryan and the Invasions, which were all great, big spectacle sort of shows, big props, snow speeders, all fantastic stuff. But of course, when you're doing Star Wars, you put on the costume and you kind of stood there and you could do the poses, but you didn't really interact. It wasn't the talking to people, because obviously, the voices and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting then when we started doing the likes of the Harry Potter and doing the Doctor Who, and you would come swanning along as a River song. I do mean swanning along, darling. You come swanning along, and some poor chaps, there in his like Martian costume or whatever, and you'd be full on River song, or whoever it was you happened to be at that moment. And this sudden realization, hang on, we're allowed to speak now.
Yeah.
And it was lovely to see.
Yeah. No, I think, I agree with you to some degree that some of the Star Wars costumes are probably a bit more static in that way, partly because just with the helmets and all of the masks and all that kind of stuff, it's quite difficult to communicate with people, and I mean, that's the beauty about the Clockwork Droid, is that there's very little, in fact there's no conversation really with with the public when I'm in that costume. So everything about that character then is about the physical representation of the character, how she moves, how she moves her head and all of that. And that's as important just as the sort of the theatrics of putting on a voice and all that kind of thing. But it's true. I think with some of the Doctor Who characters that we have, because they're open face costumes, you have the opportunity to be a little bit more kind of full on in terms of how you do that character and engage with people and conversation and stuff like that. And that's all part of the fun. As I say, it's all about, it is about dressing up and having a bit of a laugh and engaging with people. But at the same time, that's what's different maybe between just a sort of, doing a bit of cosplay and doing an event like Invasion or our Heroes and Legends event, where effectively they're paying customers, albeit that it's all for charity, but they're still paying customers. So I think there's a slightly different level there in terms
Standard.
of what's expected. But for me, the character's really, really important because people are going there to be entertained. So if we're turning up on a costume, then I think for me anyway, it's part and parcel of you're not a mannequin. You're actually a living person portraying that character, and that's as much about the sort of physical movement and everything of the character as it is just about how you sound or what you say in terms of sort of catchphrase and stuff like that. So
you just reminded me of one of my personal happiest moments was one of the times in the Stormtrooper costume, and you'll appreciate this. You have a very restricted field of vision.
Yeah.
So I was kind of shuffling along, looking way over here to make sure that where I was going, everyone was clear. And suddenly I'm just aware that there's something has my leg. And as it kind of juked down, I can sort of see down the bottom of the helmet. And there's this little girl, and she wasn't much higher than knee height, had just lamped herself right around my leg and just looked up and went, "You're my favourite of Star Wars." Literally, I can't move because if I move, I'll fall over and crush it. But it was it was weird too because I'm just a faceless stormtrooper, and yet there you go. You are my favourite of Star Wars.
But it's that's the thing though. I think I talked to a lot of people who just have no real interest in this. They're not into Star Wars or anything like or Doctor Who or anything like that. And they're kind of like, why would you do that? But I think unless you're kind of into it and you're a fan of the films, and as we all know, people take their fandoms very seriously. So if you decide that you're gonna cosplay a character, then you've got to be prepared to take the good and the bad in terms of people's opinions about how well you portray that character.
Yeah.
And for that child that you appear in front of, who has had that stormtrooper figure, probably from Christmas or something like that, and has seen it in the film, or has done all as we used to do when we were kids, all that role play and play acting and everything, which is what kids do. It's really important that you don't kind of, for me anyway, I think it's really important that we don't kind of break that.
Yep.
By slipping out of character or anything, so you sort of have to maintain that fantasy for them, and that makes their day. I mean, at the end of the day, they know you're not really a stormtrooper, but as I say, that's for me what's part of the fun, is that everybody knows it, but everybody's prepared to play along.
Everybody does the best. The rule is, if a child walks up to you in your TIE Fighter costume and says, "Are you Darth Vader?" You are Darth Vader.
Exactly. Exactly, absolutely. But customers always right.
Yeah, for those next 30 seconds, you just tell them that you failed me for the last time, Commander. Just hope that the real Darth Vader doesn't spot you doing it.
Yeah.
We could chat on more. Well, we will chat on more about yours, but I'll throw one of mine in, because if I don't talk about one of mine, I know that at the end of this, when we finish recording, you'll go, "So why did we just talk about my costumes, Andrew?" So talk about your droid.
Well, I think this is important just to say before you do talk about one of your costumes. You said about, Amanda says, "I have an idea, Andy," but, I wouldn't suggest a costume to someone unless I kind of thought that's how my brain works. I see a character in something, and then I see somebody that I know, and I think, oh, that character and that person, they would be a good match.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. Oh no.
Any ideas that I suggest to you, it's because there's something about that character that makes me think of you.
Oh, listen, 100%. When I say Amanda says to you, I have an idea. When Amanda says she's an idea, that's a good thing. It's never a bad thing. The most classic, I think, the fastest turnaround that I can think of is the time we had the conversation, and I tongue in cheek when I say this. Oh, you know what, Andrew? Grindelwald, and literally from a conversation it was right. Really, you think so? To about like a week later, I need you to try this on. And all I had to do was figure out how to get bleached blonde hair in a week.
You had the hard job. You had the bleached blonde hair and the contact lenses.
My hairdresser had the hard job. Anna, you know the way we've been doing my hair to be Percival Graves from Fantastic Beasts? Well, we now need to look like this. And I seem to recall her in the mirror just kind of going like that there. And she just
it can't be done. It just shows you it can't be done.
She just started. Yeah, I think I was around every chemist's basically buying blonde white hairspray and then saying, no, that's yellow. No, that's gold.
Yep.
But
we got there in the end.
We did, and I think it all looked brilliant.
That is one of my. Is that the one you were going to talk about?
No.
Oh right, okay. Well then, I would have to say that was a pretty fast turnaround for Grindelwald. I will maybe talk about him a little bit more. But of course, the point about Grindelwald is we couldn't have Grindelwald without having young Dumbledore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Danny.
And young Dumbledore, I have to say, that is one of the sort of favourite costumes I've assembled because there was nothing that I made for that costume.
There it is. He's on the screen at the minute.
Yeah. But I do have to do a big shout out to Anne from the Admiral Garrison, Anne Breat, because she knitted Dumbledore's tank top from a vintage knitting pattern that I found. So it is an authentic, absolutely authentic of the time pattern and design, and she made that for him.
Tell you what, we don't have it in this gallery, but whenever you folks at home we'll see a picture come up on the screen, and it has to be one of, and I'm not a big fan of photographs of me. It has to be one of my favouriteest photographs ever, and it's myself and Danny. Danny is in the Dumbledore kit. I'm in the Grindelwald kit. We're on the stairs at the
Victoria Square, I think
Victoria Square in Belfast, doing our kind of magical dueling pose, and that for me, that was a magical night.
It was great. But we turned those. I mean, you're right. We turned that whole set round in, I don't know, about 2 weeks. I think
easily.
Yeah.
But then you done that for one of the Whovian events for Forbidden Planet as well, because didn't you manage to? No, I'm not gonna remember everyone's names here. Haley and Adam and his other mate, Matthew.
Yeah.
Was that not another like? Oh, I have an idea for next week.
Yeah, we were doing Forbidden Planet, and then that all started out because, well, I always fancied doing a costume for Nissa.
There she is.
Yeah, and I am sensible enough to know that I could never pull off a Nissa from Doctor Who for lots of reasons, but it's it's not a costume that I would do personally. But that's the other thing about costuming for me. It's not about necessarily what I wear. It's about being able to do that for other people. And I had a conversation with Haley because I knew it was a character that she liked and she was up for it. So Nissa was that was made out of a velvet dress that I found in a charity shop and took to pieces and put back together again, and lots of netting and tulle and all sorts of things, which is all relatively cheap and easy to get. And we turned that around. An old fur collar, not a real fur collar, but a fur collar that was sort of chopped up. And she just looked amazing. And it's not screen accurate costume by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, it worked on the day, and people knew who she was. And her brother Matthew just had the look, and you know, we were able to turn him into Turtle very easily, actually, as it turned out. Again, with very sort of get the right tie, get the collar sorted out in the shirt, and just those wee kind of touches that just made the difference. And Adam then is in the lovely red jacket with the pith helmet, bit steampunky. So that was obviously the Empress of Mars episode, which again really appealed to me because of the sort of very heavily steampunk influence there.
There they are.
But that jacket was actually a band jacket that I found again in a charity shop. So it is one of our local marching bands, obviously had discarded their uniform. So I'm not joking, I spent 2 nights sitting, picking out the embroidery stitching for the, I can't even remember now which band it was. It was like Athereal or somewhere like that, I can't remember, but it was all embroidered.
Shout out to you anyway, lads. Cheers for the jacket.
Yeah, I must try and remember who it was, but I had to sit and hand pick out all of the embroidery that was on the jacket to get it off the jacket, and again, it was a bit big for Adam, but he looked the part, you know. So
and there he is. You'd nearly think we planned this. The timing for some of these photographs has been brilliant. It's just around side. Well, no, the one that I was going to throw up conversely is probably right at the other end. It's the longest costume that I have taken to put together. It's probably the most accurate that I've bothered a costume to get, even though physically I'm not accurate for it. I don't care. It was my Holy Grail, and it's my Snake Plissken, which
oh yes, love him.
Now,
love him.
Yeah, yous will have all seen a pair of pants floating around on the screen, and that's the American term for pants, trousers to us here at home. These are painter's jeans, which were one of the last items got, because when I found them I thought, these kind of feel right, they look like the right kind of fabric, and Amanda managed to turn those and hand painted the camo pattern onto them. Yeah. So that was Amanda's big hand in that. My biggest single contribution outside that was an off the peg jacket for it, basically. And it's the right cut, it's the right sort of jacket. Justin, again, talking about people helping, Justin 3D printed the machine gun for me. Mm-hmm. The handgun was one of those where I found one that was far too big, but it was the right shape, so just took a hacksaw out and done surgery to that. Yeah. My proudest bit was the sling, because I got all the stills. You were very good at finding me photographs from the actual sort of showing that I got the stills and got the really high resolution for the time, and I managed to find out how that sling was built, and then went and ordered all the bits and the Boston studs and everything else, and I hand made the sling for the Mini-Me. And then the scanner. Now this is a costume that was actually over 4 years in the making. I'd been gathering bits for over 4 years for that. And the little scanner, for those who aren't familiar, he's got this little scanner where he has to find the president. It's this little grey box, which was the Tomy American release of Subwars. It came with handles and a bit down here, and if you look at the early part of the film, you can actually see the duct tape where they had cut off the handle. I eventually got one.
I know. I remember the day that you got it too. Yeah, you were like,
minted.
It was on Facebook. I got it.
Finally, after all these years, because I was determined I was not going out on that until I had everything right. And then the first day I took it out, I forgot the bloody trousers.
I remember that, and I remember seeing the photograph going, those aren't the trousers I painted.
What?
You had to go and buy a pair somewhere, did you?
Yeah, the guys were so annoyed at me. They made me go to the one army surplus shop in Enniskillen and just buy like standard urban camo trousers.
All those hours I spent painting those trousers, and he didn't even wear them.
Didn't even wear them.
No.
But then I got to wear it to DCC, which was lovely then, or the Dublin Comic Con. That was nice.
No, I actually have to say now for all that I did, which was doing a bit of, it was almost like painting by numbers in the end, really, on the trousers. The thing that was fiddly about those trousers was that all the pockets and everything that were on them all had to come off and then had to be put back on again, but in different places because to try and match them up. And then it was trying to match the design, on the pocket to where it was going to be on the trousers to get all the sort of the camouflage design, the pattern to match up. But the beauty about that, well, certainly from my point of view, the fun part about that was that I had a full-size Kurt Russell printed out on A4 paper on my table, which I traced. I tell, that is not a lie. He was on my table. I printed him out in almost life size, and I traced the pattern of the trousers, and that's
unbelievable.
That's how we did that.
Oh, that's a revelation even to me. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm pretty sure she didn't need a full Kurt Russell. There's a part of this was personal pleasure. She just wanted to have Kurt Russell. I had Kurt Russell on my kitchen table last night.
No, I had them all printed out. It was printed out in A4 sheets, so I had to assemble them like a jigsaw. So it was interesting.
There we are with cutting people up into parts again. That theme reoccurs. Right, you've got an evening headache. We have chatted here for about 40 odd minutes, and I'm conscious that you actually have an evening too. As you lovely people will have realised, there's no shortage of stuff. I could come on here every week and talk to Amanda about one of her costumes, and we could fill half an hour to 40 minutes without any hassle. Amanda doesn't have half an hour to 40 minutes every week to talk about her costumes, though she would love to. But we will do this again if I haven't terrified her. Our list thought was we're both, I say we're both, she's mostly, I'm doing a little bit, working on Space. I'm allowed to tell them, aren't I?
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely.
We're working.
Sure, I can't keep anything secret. So.
There you go, GHQ. Don't give her a job. We are both working on Space 1999. Picture coming up on your screen in case you're not familiar. Jerry Anderson Productions. Yes, it's an old TV show. It's got wacky fashion sense. It's got strange hairdos. I'm kind of starting to reach the point where strange hairdos aren't really going to be possible. But anyway, there's always wigs. So what we will do is, next time we're together, Amanda might have a time to do a little bit of videoing and stuff. Because Amanda does embroidering, sewing machines. Amanda collects sewing machines as well.
I do, yes. That's one of my babies just behind me here.
Yeah. So we one of the singers, a singer, I believe.
That's my Singer Featherweight 221. Okay.
I'm starting to recognise them. That's scary. What we might be able to do is convince Amanda to do a little bit of self-video of a bit of the embroidery or whatever going on. To talk about tracking down some of the costumes, because one of the things that Amanda does is she looks at a costume, she's got a great eye for going, okay, that kind of looks like this, and she finds a pattern that's very, very similar and exists from the era, and then manages to tweak it to be what she wants it to be. I, meanwhile, will come back at you and talk about some of the toys and props, the likes of the stun gun and the comlock and things like that there.
Exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very excited.
Aye. And what we might do, because, I mean, obviously, Amanda has sort of put it across to you is that, you know, this doesn't have to be a big expense. I put it across to you is that it can be very time consuming and it can be expensive. It depends what level you want to go to. So one of the things that we had sort of said before we started the show tonight was we might have a go at a little bit of a junk build. Because Space 1999, as you can see, has props which are the comlock and the gun. They're not very fancy looking things, but they're cool. There are kits and all, we'll show you some of the links to those, but what we will each try and do for the next time we're together is build one of them just a crap lying around the house. Might not be accurate, might not be perfect, but it would do at a push. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go. If you have enjoyed this, if you have any questions, fire them into the comments down below, because I do answer them. And if I don't have the answer, if you'd like to ask the beautiful Amanda a question, I shall make sure that the message gets to her by owl. And
I'm very impressed there, Andrew.
Thank you.
That was good. Yeah, like
thank
that.
you. Little segue into our cosplay world.
Yeah.
I shall get the question to her and come back with answers. And better than that, if there are any questions, we'll even answer them at the start of the next episode, which will be, we'll say April. Okay, we're just going to say April. We're not going to make this a weekly
we'll
thing.
Go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So thanks very much for watching. Amanda, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
And
it's nice to have somebody listen to me rabbit on about costumes.
Listen to you quite happily rabbit about costumes. My secret goal here, folks, is that after we've done about 4 or 5 of these, Amanda will be like, this is actually quite good fun. Yeah, sure, I'll do one of my own. And then she'll just keep doing them. I reckon it's about time I talked her into doing something. Folks, thanks very much for watching. As always, if you've got time, subscribe. The button's down in that corner. It takes you literally in that space of time. You could have hit subscribe. If you want to go all out and be really caring, you can share it with, I don't know, your friends or people you don't like. We're not proud. We'll talk to your enemies as well. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me. Goodbye from Amanda. And thanks again. Look after each other. Bye-bye.
Bye.